What would you do if the person who promised to love you for better or for worse laughed in your face the second things got worse? My wife Selena didn't just laugh. She looked me dead in the eye, the woman I'd shared a life with for 15 years, and said, "You were always just a placeholder." She called me useless. She mocked me in front of our friends, our family, everyone. What she didn't know was that, while she was busy tearing me down, I had already built something no one could ever take away. This is the story of how I lost everything on paper, and took it all back without ever raising my voice. My name is Laziel, and for as long as I can remember, my life has been built around three things: loyalty, silence, and second chances. I'm not the loudest guy in the room. I never have been. While other guys were out playing sports or chasing promotions with flashy presentations, I was in my garage. That garage wasn't just a place to park the car. It was my sanctuary, my lab, my universe. It smelled of motor oil, sawdust, and the faint, sharp scent of ozone from a soldering iron left on too long. It was filled with blueprints sketched on napkins, prototypes made from salvage parts, and dreams that were too big to fit inside the house. I was an engineer, a tinkerer, an inventor. To me, a broken machine wasn't trash. It was a puzzle. I saw potential where others saw junk. It's how I saw the world. It's how I saw people too. I always believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt, in seeing the good that was hiding just beneath the surface. That's how I saw Selena when we first met. She was vibrant, ambitious, a force of nature. She had a laugh that could fill a room, and a way of looking at you that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. She said she loved my mind, my passion. She'd come into the garage, trace the lines on my schematics with her finger, and say, "You're going to change the world one day, Laz." I believed her. I believed in us. We built a life together, in a quiet suburb of Austin, Texas. We had a son, who was now off at college, and a life that looked perfect from the outside. A nice house, 2 cars, a joint bank account. But over the years, the visits to the garage became less frequent. Her praise turned into polite impatience. "Are you still messing with that thing?" she'd ask, her tone implying my projects were childish hobbies, distractions from the real world of mortgages and 401ks. The man she once called a genius was now, in her eyes, just a guy who was good at fixing the dishwasher. I played the part she wanted. I got a stable job at a tech firm, a place where my creativity was sanded down to fit into corporate-approved project timelines. I helped them develop a groundbreaking diagnostic tool, a piece of tech that was born from a late night. All of it. Something in me, a quiet, stubborn part I thought I'd lost, refused. I wouldn't sign over the core intellectual property. I knew its worth, even if they didn't fully appreciate the man who created it. They didn't like that. My projects got sidelined, my performance reviews became lukewarm. I was slowly being pushed out. I knew it was coming, but I kept my mouth shut. I didn't tell Selena about the tension at work. I didn't want to give her another reason to look at me with that familiar shade of disappointment. I thought I was protecting our peace. I didn't realize there was no peace left to protect. I thought our life was a partnership. I was about to find out. It was just a business, and I was the asset being liquidated. The day it all fell apart started like any other Tuesday. The office was quiet that morning, too quiet. By noon, my keycard stopped working at the cafeteria. By 1, an HR rep, who couldn't even look me in the eye, was sliding a cardboard box across a polished table. "Restructuring," she mumbled. "Budget cuts." I knew what it really was. Retaliation. They couldn't get the patent, so they got rid of the man. I didn't argue. I just packed my box, left my badge on the desk, and walked out with a smile they didn't deserve. Let them think they won. I came home, 3 hours earlier than usual. The sun was still high, but my world felt dim. I sat in the car in our driveway for a long time, the engine ticking as it cooled. I was rehearsing how I'd tell her, how I'd frame it as an opportunity, a new beginning. Inside, the house smelled of reheated pasta and lemon cleaner. I could hear a podcast playing from the kitchen. Selena was laughing at something the host said. She didn't pause it when I walked in. "You're back early," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Yeah," I swallowed hard. Something happened. Her eyes finally flicked up, cold and assessing. Oh God, don't tell me you finally got fired. There was no concern in her voice, only annoyance. I blinked, the words catching in my throat. They let me go today. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped her lips. Well, hell, took them long enough. I told you all that nerdy crap in your office was pointless. No company wants a guy tinkering like it's still 1995. I just stared at her, waiting for something else. A kind word, a touch on the arm, a simple, "We'll figure this out." But there was nothing. She was already back on her phone, scrolling. "So, what now?" she asked, her thumb flicking across the screen. "You going to start another one of those projects in the garage that never go anywhere?" I opened my mouth to tell her about the licensing deal I'd been quietly negotiating for months on a different patent, the one that was solely mine, to tell her about the money that was about to be deposited into an account she knew nothing about. But I couldn't. The look on her face, the casual said, "I just need a little time to figure things out." Selena smirked. "You've had your whole life to figure things out, Laz." That night she insisted we go to dinner at her sister's place. "It'll look worse if we don't go," she said, applying her lipstick with military precision. The dinner was an ambush. Before the overcooked roast was even served, Selena leaned back in her chair, swirled her wine, and announced to the table, "So, Laz finally got canned today." The room went still for a beat. Then her brother-in-law, Rick, laughed. "Guess they finally figured out he was just hiding in that lab playing inventor, huh?" Her sister Nancy chuckled. "Oh, poor thing. Maybe it's time to get a real job, like teaching or driving for Uber." Selena chimed in, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "He's always got those weird little notebooks. Maybe one day he'll invent a toaster that doesn't burn bagels." I said nothing. My fork scraped against my plate. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped something out of me and forgot to put it back. On the drive home, she hummed along to the radio as if she hadn't just gutted me in front of her entire family. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked barefoot to the garage. It was my escape pod, she used to call it, back when she was joking. I clicked on the old lamp and sat on the workbench stool. I pulled out a wooden box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were my earliest designs. Sketches on yellowing paper. An old schematic for a medical diagnostic tool. The very first version of what would become LAPS, the Laziel Analytic Probe System. I heard her footsteps. She stood in the doorway, arms folded. "Still clinging to your little dreams, huh?" she said, her voice flat. She turned and walked away without waiting for an answer. I stayed there for hours, surrounded by the ghosts of what I used to believe in. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel defeated. I felt a quiet, cold resolve hardening inside me. I went back inside and, on a hunch, logged into the old joint email account we never used anymore. The inbox was a graveyard of spam and old newsletters. But then I saw it. An unread message from 6 months ago, sent from her to a local law firm. The subject line, "Exit strategy, urgent." My stomach twisted as I opened it. "My husband is no longer employed," she had written. "He has no income, and I suspect he won't for some time. I'd like to proceed with a high-yield separation plan. I want full control of our assets. He's emotionally dependent." The next morning, she slid a stack of papers across the kitchen table with the precision of someone finishing a chess move. "Separation agreement," she said, sipping her coffee. "It just makes everything cleaner." I thumbed through the pages. It was all there, just like in her spreadsheet. She wanted everything. "It's not personal," she added, finally looking at me. "It's just practical." I looked at her, at the woman who had shared my bed, who I had trusted with my dreams, and I saw a stranger, a cold, calculating stranger. I thought about arguing. I thought about yelling. I thought about showing her the email, exposing her plan. But then I remembered the patent. My patent. The one filed in my name only, years before we were married, with a clause my lawyer insisted on. All intellectual property created solely by the applicant remains under the applicant's full legal ownership, regardless of marital status. She had forgotten it existed. She thought it was just another one of my pointless projects. So I picked up a pen, and without asking for a single change, I signed the papers. For the first time in weeks, I saw her flinch. Just a tiny break in her confident facade. She expected a fight. She expected tears, begging, drama. I gave her calm, quiet agreement. I handed her the pen and left her at the table, staring at my signature. Sometimes the best trap is the one they walk into, smiling. The days that followed were a quiet war. She left job flyers on the counter for minimum wage stocking positions and rideshare companies. "You're not above honest work, right?" She'd write on them. I'd fold them neatly and drop them in the trash. I spent my time in the garage, but I wasn't tinkering. I was preparing. I installed a new lock on the garage door. Then I set up a small, motion-activated camera, hidden in the rafters, aimed at my workbench. On the bench, in plain sight, I left a single, notarized copy of the patent's ownership clause. It wasn't paranoia, it was documentation. I knew she wouldn't be able to resist. Her greed and arrogance were predictable. 3 nights later, my phone pinged, the motion sensor. I opened the live feed and watched as she slipped into the garage like a thief in her own home. She went straight to the workbench, unfolded the paper, and took a picture of it with her phone. She didn't see the tiny red light blinking in the darkness above her. I didn't confront her. I just saved the footage, time-stamped it, and forwarded it to my new attorney. 2 days later, we were in court. Selina was dressed in a tailored gray suit, her expression a careful mask of sorrowful duty. Her lawyer stood up, smug and confident. Attorney stood. "Respectfully, Judge, we'd like to enter a short video into evidence." The courtroom screen lit up. There she was, in silent, full-color betrayal, creeping into my private space, illegally accessing a document. Gasps rippled through the room. Selina's face went white. Her lawyer looked like he'd been punched. The judge adjusted her glasses, her gaze shifting from the screen to Selina. "This borders on criminal trespass, Mrs. Cuth," she said, her voice like ice. "You accessed private intellectual property without consent and attempted to present it as a marital asset. You do not want to push this further." The case was over. Her claim was dismissed with prejudice. Outside, in the heavy Texas heat, she caught up to me. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "You embarrassed me in there." I turned to face her, my voice low and steady. "I didn't start anything, Selina. You did. I just stopped covering for you." "I gave you years," she spat. "I supported your dumb dreams." "No," I cut in, the truth finally clear and sharp. "You tolerated me when it suited you, and when it didn't, you tried to erase me." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I walked away. That Friday, I met my old co-founder Ian at a quiet cafe. He slid a folder across the table. "It's done," he said. I opened it. The number was written out in words, like some ancient ritual. $117 million. The patent for lapse, my pointless project, had been sold. Later that day, we were back in court to finalize the divorce. The judge looked at me. "Mr. Kuth, your response to the asset division." I stood up. "Your Honor, I agree to all of her terms. The house, the car, the joint accounts. She can have them." A murmur went through the room. Selina stared at me, confused. "Why?" she whispered across the aisle. I looked her in the eye for the last time. "Because freedom," I said, "is worth more than anything you ever took from me." As we left the courthouse, a smug smile spread across her face. "Finally free from you," she muttered. I just smiled back. "Tell your lawyer to Google lapse patent this afternoon." I watched her smile falter, the confusion returning to her eyes. Then I got in my car and drove away, not looking back. By 5:30 p.m., my phone started blowing up. 3 missed calls from her lawyer. 5 from her. A string of frantic texts. "We need to talk. Urgent." I didn't answer. She had it all: the house, the car, the accounts, the empty shell of a life we once shared. And in signing that agreement, she had legally waived any claim to future earnings or assets I acquired. She had traded a potential fortune for a few $100,000 in assets because she was so sure I was worthless. She had played herself. I started talking to my daughter again, not about the divorce, but about her life, her dreams. One day she texted me, "Dad, thank you for staying you." Selena thought the money was the prize. She never understood that peace was the victory. She tried to erase me, to write me out of my own story. But my quiet strength, the same patience that allowed me to build complex machines from scratch, was the loudest answer in the end. Have you ever been underestimated by someone you thought was on your side? Share your story in the comments below.